In April, Liberal leader Mark Carney stepped into the national spotlight with the unveiling of a sweeping public safety plan, a move that immediately set off waves of debate across the country. Framed as a bold new blueprint for keeping Canadians safe, Carney's proposal aims to address the growing sense of unease many feel about crime and security in their communities. The plan promises to tackle rising crime rates with a series of ambitious reforms, signaling a major shift in how the government intends to approach public safety. Carney's message is clear. The status quo isn't working, and it's time for a comprehensive overhaul. At its core, the plan targets 4 key areas: stricter gun control measures, sweeping justice system reforms, enhanced online safety protections, and expanded police powers. These are issues that have dominated headlines and fueled passionate discussions in households and parliament alike, reflecting deep-seated anxieties about the future of Canadian security. Supporters of the plan see it as a necessary and timely update, arguing that Canada must adapt to a rapidly changing world where threats are more complex and unpredictable than ever before. They believe these reforms will help restore public confidence and make communities safer for everyone. But not everyone is convinced. Critics from across the political spectrum warn that the plan could come at a steep cost, potentially undermining the very freedoms and rights that define Canadian democracy. They argue that expanding state power in the name of safety is a slippery slope. Civil liberties groups, legal scholars, and activists have gone so far as to label the plan really dangerous, raising alarms about the potential for government overreach and the erosion of hard-won civil rights. They point to past examples where similar measures have led to unintended consequences. Their central fear is that, in the rush to address crime, the government may be prioritizing state power over the protection of individual rights and freedoms. This tension between security and liberty is at the heart of the current debate. The real question isn't whether crime is a problem. Almost everyone agrees it is. The real debate is about the best way to solve it. Should Canada double down on law enforcement and surveillance, or invest more deeply in social reforms and community support? The answer will shape the country's future. In this video, we'll break down the details of the Liberal plan, explore the fierce criticisms it faces, and examine how Canada's heated debate over public safety mirrors the law and order battles playing out in the United States and beyond. At the heart of the government's new public safety strategy is a renewed and determined push for stricter gun control, a move that has reignited passionate debate across the country. The issue of gun regulation has long divided Canadians, but recent events and growing concerns about gun violence have brought it back to the forefront of national conversation. Supporters argue that bold action is needed to prevent further tragedies, while opponents warn of unintended consequences for responsible gun owners. The Liberal government's plan includes accelerating the buyback of assault-style firearms, aiming to remove thousands of these weapons from circulation by 2025. This buyback program is designed to ensure that firearms deemed too dangerous for civilian use are permanently taken off the streets, with the hope of reducing the risk of mass shootings and gun-related crime. Officials say the process will be transparent and fair, with compensation for owners who surrender their firearms. Another major change would see the RCMP, rather than the gun industry, gain exclusive authority to classify new firearms. This shift is intended to close regulatory loopholes that have allowed some weapons to slip through the cracks in the past. By centralizing this responsibility with law enforcement, the government hopes to create a more consistent and accountable system for determining which firearms are legal and which are prohibited. The proposed measures also include automatic revocation of gun licenses for anyone convicted of violent crime. This means that individuals who have demonstrated a risk to public safety would lose their legal access to firearms without delay, a move supporters say will help prevent future violence and protect communities. Supporters of these reforms, including victims groups and public safety advocates, call them overdue life-saving steps. They argue that the right to live free from gun violence outweighs the right to own certain types of firearms. For many, these changes represent a necessary response to the pain and loss experienced by families affected by gun crime, and a chance to build safer communities for future generations. However, critics, especially those in rural areas, see these measures as government overreach that unfairly targets law-abiding citizens. Many rural Canadians rely on firearms for hunting, sport, and protection, and feel that the new rules ignore their traditions and realities. They argue that the real problem lies with illegal guns and criminal activity, not with responsible gun owners who follow the law. These critics believe that government resources would be better spent targeting smugglers, organized crime, and gangs who traffic illegal firearms across borders. They point to the need for stronger enforcement and border security, rather than new restrictions on those who already comply with existing laws. As the debate intensifies, both sides claim the moral high ground, each convinced that their vision best serves the public good. The future of gun control in Canada remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the conversation is far from over, and the stakes could not be higher for communities across the country. The plan's overhaul of bail laws is among its most controversial elements. For repeat violent offenders, a new reverse onus system would require the accused to prove why they should be released on bail. The government says this will keep dangerous individuals off the streets and reduce crime. Critics argue it undermines the presumption of innocence and could lead to more pre-trial detention, punishing people before conviction. Legal experts warn this shift risks wrongful detention and disproportionately harms marginalized groups already overrepresented in the justice system. The new bail rules could deepen cycles of poverty and incarceration rather than address root causes of crime. The debate: public safety versus due process and equality before the law. The plan introduces tough new laws to protect children and hate crime victims, especially online. Penalties for online luring and the creation of non-consensual sexual deepfakes would increase sharply. These measures respond to the rise of AI-generated abuse and aim to make digital spaces safer for youth. The plan also proposes classifying femicide as first-degree murder and criminalizing obstruction of access to places of worship and schools. Supporters praise these as necessary modern protections. Critics question whether harsher penalties alone can address deep-seated issues like misogyny and hate, arguing for more investment in education and prevention. The challenge: can new laws alone change culture? A major pillar of the plan is hiring over 1,000 new RCMP officers and 1,000 new border agents to fight crime and smuggling. The government argues more personnel will deter crime and improve public safety. The most contentious proposal: allowing authorities to obtain warrants to search mail for contraband. Civil liberties advocates warn this erodes privacy and could set a dangerous precedent for surveillance. Critics fear expanded police powers will disproportionately target marginalized communities, increasing surveillance without addressing underlying issues. The question: does more policing equal more safety or more intrusion? Critics call the plan really dangerous because it expands state power on multiple fronts, reaching into areas of daily life that many believe should be protected from government overreach. The proposed laws would give authorities sweeping new powers, raising alarms among those who value civil liberties and personal freedoms. These changes mean more police on the streets, tougher bail requirements that make it harder for people to await trial outside of jail, and the introduction of advanced surveillance tools that track citizens' movements and activities in unprecedented ways. Civil liberties groups warn that once these powers are granted, they rarely shrink. History shows that emergency measures often become permanent, and tools meant for public safety can be turned against political dissenters, journalists, or marginalized communities. The fear is not just about what the laws say now, but how they could be used or abused in the future. The reverse onus bail system, in particular, is seen as a direct threat to the presumption of innocence, a cornerstone of justice. Instead of the state having to prove why someone should be detained, the accused must prove why they should be released. This shift could lead to mass pretrial detention, disproportionately affecting those who are already vulnerable or lack resources. Critics argue the plan doubles down on failed tough-on-crime policies from the past, which have led to overcrowded prisons and devastated families, without making communities safer in the long run. Instead of addressing the root causes of crime, like poverty, lack of access to education, and unstable housing, the laws focus on punishment. This approach, they say, increases incarceration rates while leaving underlying social problems untouched. Issues like addiction and deep-seated inequality are complex and require long-term solutions, not just harsher penalties. Many believe that investing in mental health care, addiction treatment, and community support would do more to improve public safety than expanding police powers. The danger, critics say, is a justice system that punishes symptoms rather than addressing causes, deepening social divides and eroding trust in public institutions. While supporters see these measures as necessary action to restore order, opponents warn of a slippery slope toward authoritarianism. For many, the debate is not just about crime and punishment, but about the kind of society we want to build, one that values safety, but not at the expense of freedom and justice. The stakes are high, balancing safety and freedom, and weighing the risk of unintended consequences that could reshape the justice system for generations. As the debate rages on, one thing is clear: these laws could have far-reaching impacts, and the choices made now will echo far into the future. The plan's critics warn of a growing carceral state, a society relying on policing and prisons to solve social problems. Instead of investing in mental health, housing, or education, resources go to punishment and surveillance. This approach, they argue, fails to address why crime happens and often makes things worse. Marginalized groups, especially Indigenous and Black communities, already face disproportionate policing and incarceration. Tougher bail and sentencing could deepen these inequalities, making justice less fair. True safety, critics say, comes from social support, not more police. The Liberal plan, in their view, risks building a more policed, less free society. Canada's debate echoes the U.S. law and order battles, where tough-on-crime policies have led to mass incarceration and deepened inequality. The U.S. experience shows how expanded state power can erode civil liberties and disproportionately harm marginalized communities. Critics warn Canada not to follow this path, pointing to the American carceral state as a cautionary tale. The Trump-era's use of federal power for political ends highlights how quickly public safety rhetoric can justify authoritarian measures. While Canada's plan is less extreme, the underlying risks are similar: more state control, less freedom. The lesson: expanding police powers can have far-reaching, unintended consequences. Canadians must decide if security is worth the cost to liberty. The Liberal safety plan forces Canadians to confront a core dilemma: how to balance security with freedom. Supporters argue decisive action is needed to protect communities, even if it means some trade-offs in civil liberties. Critics warn that sacrificing rights for safety can backfire, leading to more prisoners, more surveillance, and less justice. The real challenge is finding solutions that don't treat safety and liberty as opposites. Investing in prevention, rehabilitation, and oversight may offer a path forward. The debate is about more than policy. It's about the kind of country Canada wants to be. The outcome will shape Canadian society for years to come.